focusing on electrical engineering, electrical and computer engineering, industrial engineering, and multidisciplinary engineering. My name is Derek Williams Bacon, and I'm your host. I serve as the K-12 and undergraduate program administrator. So I'm the person that supervises all the programs that we have here with the minority engineering program. Kind of like a community that we have, and you'll find our students will tell you a lot of things because they have a lot of insights. So we're going to get to introduce all of them tonight. But Vivek is our graduate assistant. Would you tell them a little bit about yourself, Vivek?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Vivek Muralidharan. I'm a PhD candidate in School of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and I also work with MEP as a graduate assistant. I manage the Academic Success Center, making sure that all of the undergrad students and even grad students they have access to different resources, academic resources like different books and binders and stuff like that, and also making sure that we have enough tutors scheduled to help with your academics. Good to have you here.
We're so glad to have everyone, and we know folks come as as we're doing this, more people will join, so we won't worry about that. Let's go on to the next screen, Vivek. So first of all, we just like for you to know our agenda today. We're going to cover some housekeeping items. Also, we're going to introduce you to the panelists, and we're going to have a panel discussion, Q&A. And if you guys have something personal you'd like to talk about, we will move into the breakout. But with no further ado, let's move on a step further with the housekeeping items. First of all, no, that's fine. That's fine. Let's introduce our panelists. Let's just move forward. One more. Okay, first of all, Andrea Gibson DuPerry. She's here tonight with us, and I'm gonna go ahead and just call them by name because they're going to introduce themselves. So tonight, representing electrical and computer engineering, we're going to have Hannah Paul, as well as Colin Mixon. Also representing industrial engineering will be Andrea Gibson DePerry, as well as we'll have from multidisciplinary engineering, and he's on his way. He'll be here in just a second. His name is Abraham Vondrady. So at this current time, let's move on to the housekeeping items so I can just go over that briefly with everyone, Vivek. So these are just kind of housekeeping items or just things. First of all, we should be polite. We should also uh, just if there's no writing on the screen or anything like that, we want to be very sensitive and very respectful to one another. This is pretty much an informal environment where you get a chance to talk to student to student. But and so there'll be a time, even if we do breakout rooms toward the end, where you can talk to someone individually or one-on-one, even if it's something private that you just want to their opinion about. One thing you'll find out about MEP is this is a family. So do not mute yourself unless you have a question or comment. Share your video. Now, has everyone shared their video? We need to see your face. Yes, thank you. I saw we got someone's face and a smile. We're doing well. If you'd like to participate, just raise your hand, send questions to the chat, and then we'll make sure we're addressing any questions that you have. Now, in addition to that, we will also be videotaping. Since we're videotaping, we want you to know because we could put this on YouTube later. There's students who, unfortunately, due to their schedule, are unable to to be here right now. So We'll put it on YouTube. And if this is your time, if you don't want to be on video, you can bow out, come back, however you want to do it. So with no further ado, we're going to let our panelists introduce themselves. Let's move on to our first panelist. They're going to tell you about themselves. Andrea.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Andrea Gibson-Terry, and as you can see, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I am currently a junior in industrial engineering. I also have a minor in global engineering and then a certificate in management and organization. So overall, why I said IE is a good major to enter is because it's an opportunity to solve large-scale problems regarding to efficiency and optimization. And there are so many opportunities in the field of industrial engineering because it's not restricted to one specific area in the professional world, which is really amazing. And that's why I personally entered industrial engineering. And I also believe that it is one of the most diverse engineering majors that we have here at Purdue because it has curriculum in different schools. Like I took a class in ECE, I took a class in ME, I took classes in nuclear engineering. So it's just like a very diverse major, which I really enjoy. And then for my professional experiences thus far, I worked at T Connectivity for the past 2 summers, which is an automotive supplier. And I had first worked in the global procurement sector as an intern and then product management. And then this coming summer, I'm going to be a summer analyst with Accenture. So overall, my career goals, like probably within 4 to 5 years, I want to get my MBA. And then I also want to work in project management and potentially entrepreneurship as well.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Okay.
Thank you.
Colin, you would introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Mixon. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a 5th year senior in electrical engineering. I have a minor in communications. The reason I have chosen my major is because I love technology, specifically consumer electronics, or I guess any electronics, but consumer electronics would be my preference. And then the reason I chose electrical engineering out of all the engineering majors that could be applied to technology is because I have a greater interest in semiconductors and microprocessors than software, which would have led me to either computer engineering or computer science. Internships, being a 5th year, I've had quite a few, dating back all the way to 2018 when I was an intern at Intel, and then these past 2 summers, I've been an intern at Microsoft. Program management is an intersection of technology. So my background in electrical engineering is a benefit, but it also considers the decisions as they relate to business and in making money, as well as thinking of the appropriate people and the customer when you are determining which products or features you'll be building. So I'll be returning to Microsoft this upcoming summer as a program manager in their cloud computing platform, Azure. And then career goals, a little more recent. This upcoming year will be my last year. So hopefully I'll be able to receive a full-time offer from Microsoft, and then that will put me on the path of product, and hopefully that will turn sometime in the future into a VP of product or a role where I get to determine the life of a product.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Hannah Paul.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm also from Detroit, Michigan, and I'm also in electrical engineering, and also a senior in electrical engineering. And why I chose EE per se would be also because it's the basis of technology, and also because I was interested in IoT, which is kind of a phrase that gets thrown around in business a lot, which is Internet of Things. And for different internships or jobs I've had in the past, it would be working at HP or Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And I've been there since sophomore year in the summer. And the program that I was doing with them is where I had an internship over the summer where it was full-time. And then they allowed me to work part-time over the school year and then just kept continuing on and switching back and forth between full-time and part-time between the school year and the summer. And from that experience and working with them for 2 years, I was able to be a quality intern, a server engineering, test verification, test verifier, and then also this past summer and during this current school year, I was a program manager for their Apollo systems. And with these experiences, I was also able to secure a full time with HP for this upcoming summer when I graduate. So I'll start in July there. And career goals right now is short term would be eventually getting my MBA. After getting my BS in EE, and then from there, hopefully going up higher within the HP company itself and being able to just to see the different, um, I guess, sectors of IoT within HP.
That's great. That's great. So we also have joining us is Abraham, and I'm going to pose these questions to you so we don't leave you out. So first of all, Abraham, could you tell us about where you're from and your major?
Hey everyone, Abraham here. I grew up in Haiti, but I've been living in Indianapolis for close to 10 years now. My major is multidisciplinary engineering with a concentration in engineering management, and I also have a secondary major in Spanish and a minor in management. Um, I've been lucky enough to have had 4 different internships. Like Colin, I am a 5th year senior. And my first 2 internships were at GE Aviation. I interned there. The first one was as a design engineer. The second one was as a data scientist. And then I switched over to Elanco Animal Health. The first one was I worked in their commercial IT space doing software development and application integration. And then last last summer, I worked more on the processes side, so trying to come up with agile processes for delivery. Um, I will be joining them, Elanco Animal Health, full time this summer as a technical delivery lead. I think that's the I think that's the title. Why I chose MDE? I was a computer engineering student for a while, and I really enjoyed it, but I felt like I wasn't it was a bit too technical than I guess wanted, and I wanted more of the processes and the business side. And I think MDE, multidisciplinary engineering, allowed me to combine all of those together, where I was able to continue taking the super technical computer engineering courses that I wanted, but then also add on that engineering management factor. And I feel like my, I guess, entire internship track kind of like led works so super well with MDE thing. Whether that was it, right?
Yes, just one other question, and that is your current goals versus your future goals, ultimate goal.
Okay. Current goal. Getting started at Elanco as a technical service, as a technical delivery lead. Future goals is, I guess, 5 years from now to be a technical project manager. That this might take a little. This might actually take less time, given where I'm currently about to start at the company. So hopefully 3 years, I guess. And I also will be getting my MBA not soon, but sometime
Right.
soon.
It's in the plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start off, and this is the order we're going to follow. So we've got one or more panelists in each area, and so we just need one or both of you to respond. If in some cases it's just one of you. So the first question is, what different majors can be found in your college, and then what's the difference between each of those those programs? So let's start with ECE, Electrical and Computer Engineering. Are there different majors within the college?
Yeah, so within ECE, there's really only two main majors because it's electrical or the College of Electrical and Computer Engineering. There's electrical engineering, which both Colin and I are, and then there's also computer engineering. And those are the main majors that you can find within our ECE college, but we do have lots of people from mechanical engineering or even industrial engineering who take an ECE minor, and you can get a minor within ECE as well. So really the only main majors are EE and Comp, and then the difference between each would be electrical engineering, I would say, is more circuitry based, hardware based, and then computer engineering is in the name more computers, where you do more software based things, and you can kind of connect computer engineering with CS, but it's more the engineering side of computer sciences, you could say.
Colin, would you like to add anything? That's great.
Hannah hit it on the head of the nail. I would only you can kind of think of it as a spectrum. So on the far end, on the right-hand side, you have electrical engineering, which can encompass a lot of things. Obviously, you'll have circuits, but you'll also have power systems, right? And then on the left-hand side, on the other extreme, you can have CS, as Hannah mentioned, which is strictly software, it's strictly that computer science. And then somewhere in the middle, you'll have computer engineering, which will take different aspects from EE, from CS, and you'll be able to apply it to computers depending on what you're looking to do.
That's great. Okay, so now we're moving on to IE. Same question. Are there different majors in your college? And if so, what's the difference?
So for industrial engineering, the only major in the college is industrial engineering, but we do have various emphasis and concentrations that you can have. I know for some of the emphasis, there's some in finance, healthcare, human factors, manufacturing, operations, research, different stuff like that. So it's really a matter of once you first get to into the College of Industrial Engineering, you then would talk to your advisors about different tracks that you could take. And if you do want to focus on more so technology or processes, then you can have that opportunity to do so.
That's great. That's great. Okay, and multidisciplinary. Just the name itself says a lot.
Yeah, in multidisciplinary, we have a lot of concentrations. I believe that once you graduate, it'll probably say multidisciplinary engineering or interdisciplinary engineering with your concentration. But like a short list of concentrations we have acoustical engineering. So if you want to focus on sounds and stuff like that, so that would be a great place for you. We have educational engineering. That's great for the people who want to get like a PhD further down the line in engineering education. So basically trying to figure out new methods to teach engineering to students. There's engineering management, the one I'm doing. So that has a lot of project management aspect to it, and then going more into like financial management as well. There is general engineering, which like it sounds is very general. So you get to pick and choose what you do with that one. I know a student who's in general engineering and he's actually doing software engineering with that. So he's taking a lot of computer engineering and CS classes. There is humanitarian engineering. So a lot of the people who choose that route, they go work for FEMA and other places like that and help around with disasters and trying to coordinate resources. There's lighting engineering for lighting design, if you want to focus on the engineering aspect of that. There is nano engineering for nanotech. And then there's theater engineering, which focuses on theater, focuses on set designs and stuff like that. And then there is visual design engineering, which like the name, it focuses on visual design. So, and then there is also pre-medical engineering. So a lot of students, whatever they study here, might want to go to med school at some point in time, and pre-medical engineering within multidisciplinary engineering is a good place to start if that person is you.
Fantastic. So now, what type of person would be a great fit for your field? What kind of person? And let's start with electrical or computer engineering. What kind of person is either one of these majors a good fit for?
Yeah, I would say based on the classes that I've taken and trying to remember back to what I was doing in high school as it related to coursework, the ECE curriculum, electrical and computer engineering curriculum, is composed of physics, electromagnetics, circuits, anything related to electricity, obviously, computer hardware, so Intel and AMD chipsets, or you can also think about computer software. So I would say if you are interested in one technology and understanding the things that make your phone or make your computer, electrical and computer engineering is definitely a great place for you to start. And then more broadly, if you're interested in power systems, communications, networking systems, if you hope to work and innovate on the grid, if you hope to work and find the next resource for electrical engineering or electrical power, ECE, electrical and computer engineering, can also be a great place for you to start there. Hannah, did you have anything that I missed?
No, I think you got it. That's a great, I guess, whole way of saying what kind of person you would be or would be a good fit within the EC field. And like Colin said, it's basically anything to do with technology. So I mean, just looking in my room right now, like my lamp, my headset, the phone, and the computer, like all of these require at least some type of ECE engineer to help build these things. So really anything with technology.
That's great. Andrea, what kind of person is a great fit for IE? I know it's a
Okay.
very broad area, so
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I is very broad. So I think for the reason that I kind of learned about it is solving big scale problems, like getting to understand processes and how they work, and how you can make them more efficient. That's the overall of how people get called into IE, because you can do that in any different field that you want. That is seen in every aspect of business if you plan on entering industry. And that is like, it's really about problem solving. And you can see that in every aspect of different types of engineering. And that's why our curriculum is so diverse. And another thing that's really good about industrial engineering is you can do just about anything with your degree. So if you know you want to do engineering, but you are like, I don't want to focus on one specific thing, I want to have the opportunity to get a broad spectrum of different types of engineering. That's another thing that's really good with industrial engineering. And the fact that you get to understand on a large scale how things work. So, I mean, that's overall what I would say.
that's interesting. It almost sounded like multidisciplinary
Yeah,
engineering.
I mean, it kind of
Well,
does.
we'll let Abraham help us here.
With multidisciplinary, if you're a student who likes everything or doesn't necessarily know what you like, multidisciplinary is a great way to go. The way I think about it is a lot of multidisciplinary students have one thing or a few things that they're interested in, but those things don't span through an entire major, kind of, right? So it's like, I know a student, he's very interested in underwater sounds. Like there isn't a major that solely focuses on underwater sound. So he has a concentration in acoustical engineering. And looking at that, he knows that he will need to include many disciplines if he wants to analyze underwater sounds, for example. He will need electrical and computer. He will need MEP. He will need other civil, probably. So the good thing about multidisciplinary engineering is that it allows you to take the things that you believe will help you from those different majors, like IE, ECE, ME, and you gather them around your concentration, which is like that little thing that makes you tick. And then you just like, okay, I'm just gonna use all of those things to help me achieve this goal. And for me, that's kind of what I was going for. I was like, I want to get into the technical project management side. I definitely like to focus on software, but I also want to be able to like handle budgets and stuff like that, and then plan projects, look at like 2 years ahead when it comes to a project. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep most of my combi classes, but also add some classes from our School of Management here, and it all came together beautifully, basically.
Wow. Okay. So, and maybe you've already said this, but what do you like about your major? And I guess it's so everyone has to answer this question.
So for my major for being an EE, what I like the most about it is as a sophomore when I got into the EC College of Engineering, I knew for sure I wanted to do electrical engineering, but as I was, in the workforce and looking for internships and trying to figure out the workforce and what to do after graduation, people kept asking me, "Oh, are you more hardware based or are you more software based?" So with my major, you're easily able to, whether you pick computer engineering or electrical engineering, you can easily kind of sway it. As Colin said, there's a spectrum. You can sway it to which side you want to focus more on. So as an EE, I can be solely and completely hardware based, or I can still be an EE, but have, some software based classes within my degree, or even have more focus on the computer engineering side, but still be an EE. And you can do the same thing with computer engineering. You can lean more towards the CS side, but still be an engineer, or you can be a computer engineer that's focusing on software, but still knows enough about hardware and circuitry and things like that. So I would say that's what I like most about your major, is that basically a spectrum, and you can figure out like where you want to go depending on your major. It's not a clear cut um, between each major.
Well, that's good. Okay, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah kind of stole my lightning, but um, that is one of the reasons why I love electrical and computer engineering. Actually, like Abraham, I started out as computer engineering, and then once I started taking a couple of classes, it was mainly the programming classes where I was able to sit back and realize I wasn't really passionate about it. So that's where I was able to make the decision and look at hardware, and through that process and them being in the same class, or, excuse me, same college of engineering, them having very similar curriculums, I was able to make that switch fairly easily, actually really easily. A lot of the classes I didn't have to go back and retake, or I didn't have to add any additional classes on. So if you do have, that realization that you want to do technology, or you want to do electronics, and you don't know which side of that spectrum you fall on, going into ECE, you have a very quote unquote easy ability to pivot if you desire or realize that you need to later on. So that's one of the reasons. And then more specifically towards the curriculum, you really get to understand, and I think Hannah could probably validate this, you really get to understand how the technology that we use in our everyday lives is built. And that's really fascinating to be able to understand, this computer works, or Zoom is working because a big computer somewhere in North America is running it and streaming it to your computer. So being able to really understand the underlying reasons why some of this stuff operates the way it does is quite frankly mind-blowing. So it's a fun way to peek behind that curtain.
Right, right. That's great. Andrea, what do you like about IE?
I mean, like I've said it before, but I would just say overall that it is a well-rounded curriculum, and I get to see all the different majors that Purdue has to offer within that School of Engineering. And then also the fact that it kind of forces you to see different fields that you could potentially get interested in. Because previously, actually this current semester, I'm taking this law class, and it's really interesting that that is a potential concentration that I could look into. And just knowing that that wouldn't have been offered unless it was an elective within my major is also very beneficial for me. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. Abraham.
Multidisciplinary engineering is a small school within Purdue, which is big. So although we all have our different concentration, it's still this small community that that can rally around you basically if you need anything. We're like, I think my graduating class has about 26 students in it. So there
Wow.
aren't a lot of us. There's not a lot of us out there, but basically we're here for each other. And also, given that our school, this major is within the School of Engineering Education, the methods that are used, that our professors, our multidisciplinary engineering professors use to teach us, those are the methods that they research through their through the School of Engineering Education. So we basically getting access to all the people who are getting their doctorates in
Mhm.
engineering education, and those are the people who are teaching us. A cool thing about MDE is that all the MDE classes that are actual MDE classes do not have exams. So if you do not want exams, come to MDE. You will get out of the class having learned so much more, because in the class you're able to look at real world examples of the things that you're working at, and then putting the concepts that you've learned to use. And it's fascinating how stark of a difference there is between like some MD classes and some classes that I have to take outside of my school. But yeah, come to MD, it's great.
Wow, wow. You guys should go into sales. So moving on to academics. What are the classes like? What are the challenges? We're talking to current high school students, so you'll have to go back in your mind to where you were back then, because there may be things they don't know. So, in terms of the classes in your major, what are the challenges, and what would you, or advice, anything you want to talk to them about as they would move into electrical and computer engineering and the academics and classes? I'll start with Hannah and Colin.
Awesome. What are the classes like? What are the challenges? So I would say the classes are, I would say ECE does a really good job, in my opinion, on providing the necessary information in the classroom, and then also mirroring that in the labs. I feel like I can, learn about a capacitor, learn about semiconductors, and then directly apply that by building that device or building that electrical hardware. So I appreciate that. The challenges, like with any debugging, software or hardware, you can spend hours on a error that literally means you just missed a semicolon. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge. Of course, there are hard classes, easy classes, et cetera, but I would say something that I see consistently throughout all the coursework is that it simply takes time. And it can take a lot of time depending on if you have to do a lot of programming or debugging in that class or lab. Anna?
Yeah, Colin had a great point there with the classes, where each class there's always some sort of lab that you can relate to it. And the labs also, some of the labs you do have to take as like getting the basis of what ECE is. But once you get into your junior and senior year, the normal classes that you're taking, there is a lab for every single one. So you can easily like find that real world application to it, which Colin made a great point that they have that connection there between the lecture and the lab. I would add on that the challenges, like for me thinking back, I never had any coding experience in high school. Like I heard, like I did a little bit of coding here and there within high school, but what I would say the challenges is in general, like I would say this is just for any, I guess, college course, but for me specifically, there's a few coding classes that I joined that for me the challenge was being able to ask for help, or realizing like you don't need that much background experience to actually do these courses. And to me, I felt like that was a challenge to actually understand and see, because only after the course was completed I was like, hey, I didn't really have to know any of this background information. Like the professors kind of started you off without you knowing anything. So for me, it was being able to have like an open mind and realize like, oh, I don't really need that much coding experience, or I don't really need that much circuitry experience to actually do well in these classes.
Wow, that's great. What about IE classes?
Okay, so a rundown for the majority of IE classes, there's the topics of like probability, there's different optimization problems, ergonomics, and then also like programming as well. And it's interesting to see how all those integrate, because we oftentimes have a lot of real life application to our problems. Like last semester, we did the entire semester long, we did a group project where we were programming in like C, R, and HTML. And that's just trying to see how we can make a system better, essentially. But the good thing about it is when they give us all these different problems, they do apply it to real life situations. Even like in our ergonomics lab, we were seeing what's the best way to design an office space so that there's an optimization of the tools, and there's also like comfortable seating for the user. So it's really just understanding the best way to do a process, whether it's like shipping different items and different things, but finding the best solution with using the different mathematical applications.
Great, great. Abraham.
I would say for MDE, the classes kind of build on them on each other, and within basically each class, at the very start, for example, you will start small, but then the following week you will the professor will use the things you used last week and then add a little bit more into that. So there's always that constant iteration, so that you don't say that, oh, I learned this thing 2 weeks ago, we're never going to use it in the class anymore. There isn't that. It's always that constant iteration saying, oh, we learned this much, let's add a little bit more into it. That way you're already comfortable with what you learned last week. So you're like, oh, I'm ready to take on a little bit more. And then you just continue. So by the end of the class, whatever project you're working on or whatever assignments you have will feel like they're using all the information that you learn in the class. And that's basically how you are able to retain practically everything that you've learned in the class. So I think MD does a really good job at that. For challenges, I would say like all the other majors, there's a lot to learn, and you have many classes that you're taking at the same time. So time, you don't have a lot of it. So you have assignments for every class. Some classes that are, for example, outside of ND, you have exams that you have to study for. So just making sure you stay on top of your work, and like Hannah say, know that you can ask for help, because there is help to go around. It's either you can come to MEP, whatever class you're taking, someone probably has already taken it, and we can help you with that. You can go to office hours, your professors are here to help you. Like whatever the issue is, there is always that someone on campus who knows the answer. You just have to be willing to ask for it.
Mr. Williams, if I may add
Yes.
I would just say to the high school students, and then specifically when you think about, that transition from high school to college, I would say begin to, and I still struggle with this. Oh my goodness. I struggle with time management. So I would suggest to you all, if you don't feel comfortable, in high school is different than college. So I would just say, if you feel comfortable in your time management as a high school student, try and do your best to continue that when you do become a college student, because when I say will pay dividends, I promise you'll appreciate that you are good at managing time. I think a common thread is that engineering takes a lot of time, regardless of whether it's harder or easy, it just takes a lot of time. And by being able to manage your time, you're going to be able to go to, all the extracurriculars you want. You're going to be able to go to office hours. You're going to be able to ask a friend. So I would just say, if you don't have the skill of time management, begin working on it. And if you do, keep it.
Great. That's good. I do want to hit academics just a little bit more, because we're talking to high school students, and you don't know what you don't know. And I say that because a couple years ago, they gave a survey to the freshman class, and 60% of the students in the freshman class that particular year said college was not what they expected. It was not what they expected, that it was a lot more challenging, and it really surprised them. And so I think you've got some wonderful examples here to draw from. And so we've got a lot of extra time, and I don't want to, I think it will be better if you guys talk to them individually. But right now, if we could speak to making the transition from high school to college, and internally in terms of your own mindset, what were some adjustments that you had to make? Perhaps if you had not made them, you would not be as successful as you are today, because most of these students here are juniors or seniors at the end. And so You can think back to your, as a high school student, and the challenges, because we're all human beings. Time management is a struggle. There's lots of struggles. So anyone, if the floor is open to anyone. And then also students, as you go in the chat, feel free to ask a question.
I'll go first. I think one of the adjustments that I had to make was to realize that there was, like Colin was saying, there was a lot that I didn't know, and there was a lot being thrown at me at the same time. Because as a freshman, I was taking 6 different classes, of which some I had knowledge of, but it's high school classes and then a lot more. So you have a lot of concepts to go through as you go through those classes, and brute memorization doesn't work anymore. So you can't just say, I'm going to study and then retain all of this information, then the homework comes or the exam comes, I'm gonna be able to do well. That is not going to work. There are so many problems and examples that your professor can think of to put on an assignment or to put on an exam that it hasn't been out there before, because there are so many ways you can look at a concept being taught. So knowing, basically expecting the unexpected, I guess, because there is a lot coming towards you, and knowing that, hey, if whenever something comes and I'm like, oh, well, I thought I knew this, I didn't know, and then find out who knows, it'll usually be the professor. Be like, hey, either raise your hand in class or go to office hours, say, you went through this a little bit too fast, or I wasn't able to get everything that I wanted. Like, can you sit down with me for 5-10 minutes and we can talk through it? Or can you tell me other other examples that could be applicable to what we're being taught today? And that way you will cover a lot more of that concept, because the concepts they're huge. There's a lot of knowledge out there, and your professors, they're professional in their field, so they know a lot more than you do. So definitely feel free to use them. You're basically paying for it, so use your resources.
Right. Anyone else?
Okay, I can go now. So one thing I would say overall is don't necessarily expect perfection, but still strive for like excellence. You don't want to pressure yourself to the point where it's like, oh, I need to get all this right. Like, oh, I've always been at the top of my class, because that puts too much pressure on yourself. You need to give yourself grace, because you won't necessarily understand everything. But this goes kind of into my second point, that you want to build a strong community of people, specifically in your major, if you can, that you can depend on and who are knowledgeable. Because when you guys talk back and forth in a class, it helps not only you understand the material more, but it even helps the other person understand more. So it's all a community effort. And I think even I'm really realizing that now this semester, because a majority of my community was seniors, and they're in different classes now. So now I need to go out and branch out and find new people that I can talk with, because it is so important in your courses to have people that you can bounce ideas off of and get a better understanding of the material.
Great.
I would say I will bring up some of the mental hurdles that I had to overcome. One was being comfortable not knowing. I think Abraham alluded to this in his statement. You know, being a freshman, either you don't know what semiconductors are, you don't know how to program, or you don't know where a specific building on campus is. You know, just being comfortable with not knowing, because there will be a lot of times where you don't know. And then the progression of that hurdle is being comfortable asking for help, whether that's in public, in the actual class, whether that's asking the professor to slow down, whether that's asking the professor to repeat something within the class, or if it's going to the professor in office hours and just stating you don't know, asking for specific help, are things that I personally struggle with as I've been progressing through my academic career. But now that I am aware of that, now that I know that, oh my goodness, it makes all the difference. Being comfortable with one you don't know, and then being comfortable with asking questions. I can guarantee you there are probably 10, 20 other people that are in the same position as you. So you'll be helping them if they're not where you are. But then too, in terms of your personal learning, it goes by a lot faster if you go ahead and reach out to the people that, you know, have studied this for literally 20, 25 years, as old as you've been alive. So that would be my advice.
Good.
I would say going off of Colin's point would be it's definitely another mental challenge that I had aside from just be willing to ask for help is also not worrying about judgment of others. Because I know in high school, especially in my high school, there was always, judging like, oh, are you taking the most advanced class? Oh, are you going to a Big Ten school? Oh, where are you going to school? Like that high
Mhm.
school mentality is definitely not there in college where everyone's judging everyone. So that's definitely a huge hurdle that I had to overcome where if I wanted to ask for help, oh, like so and so is going to judge me. Or if I wanted to join this specific group because they're an ECE group or this specific group because they're a women in engineering program, like being able to get out of your comfort zone and just not caring as much about what other people think so that you can do what you want to do with your degree in your life and be able to make those great connections. And as Andrea was saying, this can help you, make your community and who you want within your friend group even or even within your group you want to study with. And I definitely like want to point this out to like even in the workforce, like whatever you do in college, like whether or not you have like the highest GPA, as long as you can talk about yourself confidently, most workforces or most companies aren't going to care unless they know your stuff. So it took a while for me to understand like there's more to than just like what you see on the outside, that you shouldn't be judged, that people shouldn't be judging you, and you shouldn't care that if they are, whether or not they are. So I would say like not worrying about judgment and just trying new things and going for it and asking for help and doing what you want to do and not worrying about what the outside world is saying.
Good stuff. Good
I
stuff.
would add a little bit, saying that back to Hannah's point that there is no one that you're competing against here. So that has two aspects to it. You don't necessarily have the same pressure you did in high school. You're like, oh, I have to be number one in the class. So you sometimes put in extra work. You don't have that anymore. So that might cause you to fall back and be like, hey, I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just not gonna I'm just not gonna pay attention or something like that. So you definitely don't want to do that. But you also want to make sure that, to Andrea's point, that you want to build a community that includes a lot of people, because there are so many classes here and there are so many students who are coming from different majors, different programs and stuff like that to take those classes. So they each have a little bit of something that they can contribute to your learning. So definitely make sure to use them wisely. And back to the judgment point, you might be in a class with 100 students. There are some you will see in the class that you will never see again after you leave the class. You will never see them on campus. So make sure that you know that this is your time. You've come in to learn. You're like, I'm gonna go to class, I'm gonna learn this topic, and I'm not leaving class, or I'm not ending the day without having a full understanding of what the topic is. Because once that day goes by or that week goes by, the class has moved on, the professor has moved on. So you're now playing catch up. And you do not want to be in that step where you like fall behind and you have to catch up to every other week, because the following week it's going to be an exam, and by then you're a week behind and the material will be on the exam, so you might not. So whenever you go to class, make sure that you're there to learn, and that if you don't understand something, ask a question. There will probably be many other students who will want to ask the question too, but they don't know whether they should, or they're a little bit scared, or they're not comfortable. So make sure to ask it. A lot of people will thank you. So go ahead, use your resources. There are many of them, and yeah, have fun. Definitely have fun.
Wow. This is great. So we're winding down career opportunities. Are there career opportunities? What kinds of career opportunities? Someone, you're already on the floor, Abraham. Tell us about career opportunities in your area.
There are countless of opportunities. Within all the different concentration, there are many different paths you can take. For example, with general engineering, some students are going to law school, some students are going to med school, some students are going into software engineering, some are going, I know people who go and work on race cars, lots of things to do. And engineering management, I know another engineering management student who's also a part of MEP, and is looking more into the public life, like public policy and looking at city projects and stuff like that. Whereas myself, I'm going into tech. So there are many opportunities, and you are able, one thing that I think I should stress is that there are lots of majors at Purdue, lots of things to study. And at the end of the day, a lot of us who study different majors might end up in the same position. We will probably end up in the same company, working on the same team. That's not a reason for you to not do something you enjoy here, but that's to know that, hey, that you don't have to hold yourself back saying, oh, I have to corner myself within this area because this is this one job that I want. Know that there are many other jobs out there. You might not even spend more than 2 years in the job you want. So basically, whatever, I think, follow your passions, follow your interests, and then go into the major that you think best suits you. But the opportunities out there throughout all the majors are endless. There's so much to do.
What about IE? What kind of career opportunities are there in IE?
Okay, so I've seen people do many different careers through IE. I've seen data analysts, I've seen purchasing, I've seen software, consulting, project management, city development, healthcare, finance. It's all over the place, honestly. And the thing is, with that, I'll say it's really important with how you decide to market yourself. And you can decide to do whatever path you want, but I think that really comes through experience with the different internships that you're afforded. You say, oh, I do like this area. Oh, I don't. But with IE, even the more work experience that you get, you can kind of shift your path. And in some places, I've seen people pick up like concentrations, different things, because it's like, oh, I want to focus on this more. But the opportunity is so vast, like I couldn't touch everything that an IE has been in.
Great, great. And what about ECE, electrical and computer engineering?
For career opportunities in ECE, I would say first, most basic would be anything having to do with tech or technology, like Intel, Microsoft, Amazon, people who make the Asus, Mac, Apple, Samsung, any kind of tech company or anything that involves tech, you would need an ECE major in there. And aside from tech, within EE and Compy, you can also go into I've heard of a lot of people going into patent law after getting an electrical engineering degree, or even going to work for a hospital as an engineer. And so it really just depends, like, what field you want to go into after the or after the EC part. I know every time I go to the doctor's office, my physician is always talking to me about EE things and talking about how you could have an electrical engineer within the hospital helping to read off the different signals that they read off of heart monitors and EKGs and things like that. So really, anything to do with tech, and you can put that in any kind of company, I would say is where you can put ECE.
And what would you like to add, Colin?
Not much. Hannah said it all. I think, like Abraham, like Andrea, engineering in general can be applied to any industry, any sector, any application. It is really about what your interests are, the experiences that you've built, that will ultimately lead you down certain paths or make you want to not pursue certain paths. So I have no interest in going into a hospital. I could, but I don't want to. So I don't go down that path. So you have a lot of options. I would say, find a minor, find other classes, do internships that you might not expect, follow that, follow what intrigues you, and you'll be happy wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we go, I want to broach the subject of the academic boot camp, the engineering academic boot camp, is something that many of you are familiar with or have heard of. And this year, for the very first time, the boot camp will be 4 credit. We believe it's going to be 7 credits. And there are scholarship opportunities through NSBE, at least there have been for the past 3 or 4 years, which have been substantial. But can anyone here today introduce this whole notion about an academic boot camp? We will have to rely, because the student will now be an official student, there's some relaxation that will have to happen in terms of the rules. And, you know, we're very strict during boot camp. But who wants to talk?
I can go ahead and talk. So I did academic boot camp in the summer of 2016 with Abraham, actually, before we came into our freshman year. We did a go-kart as our tangible engineering project. And then we also took classes in chemistry, calculus 1 are the 2 that are most notable. Oh, in MATLAB. So as freshmen in college, most high school students do not have any experience in MATLAB. Most high school students do not have any experience in the pace of chemistry or calculus. So I think, as the name might communicate, the academic boot camp is really meant to prepare you academically and put you under those stresses of being an engineering student, so that you realize how to manage time, you realize how to ask questions sooner rather than later, as well as be an enjoyable opportunity where you get that initial hands-on experience as it relates to building a go-kart from the ground up.
Anyone want to add anything?
One last note I'd say on the less academic side, just to say overall, with the boot camp, that's where a lot of my initial friends, at least that I found. And coming from a smaller school and with Purdue having 40,000 students, it's a very different transition. So it's really great to have that community of people, and not necessarily many of the people in my bootcamp class aren't in my major, but I still talk to them to this day. I take time out of my day to speak with them and like go and get lunch with them. And it's really great to come into school with people who understand your perspective and really get to communicate with and be supportive for you.
Anyone else as we wrap up tonight?
Oh yeah, I'd say, like Colin said, it introduces you to the fast pace, like how fast paced college is, because things just go fast, and you have to make sure that you don't fall behind, and that ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. You can only get, if you want the answer, you will get it, and like you also get to build a community, like was mentioned. And I still talk to the same people that were in my boot camp, and you all start freshman year together. So you have that big community, you have that shared experience, and you're all able to like, hey, what classes are you taking? Some of you end up in the same class. That also starts your study group very early on. So, and you get experience in MATLAB, like Colin said, and because you'll be, depending on your major, you'll probably be doing a lot of MATLAB. So definitely do boot camp if you have the opportunity to do so. Totally recommend it.
Okay. Well, we're wound down, and we have a very quiet group. It didn't seem to matter that the group is quiet, because of our panelists had a lot to say. And before we go, I want to get some feedback from you guys before you go. How has this session been for you? You can either write it in or you can say something, but please unmute yourself. And if you don't mind, put your video up, so we, if possible. And someone said very, very nice. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, it was good.
Good, good, good. There's plenty more where that came from. So we'll be sending out reminders, and each of these sessions will cater to a different interest. And so every week we'll have 1 or 2 sessions. This is the last session for this week. I think we have one regarding the pandemic and adjusting to the pandemic next week. and then we'll go into first year engineering and so on and so on. We want to thank our panelists. Can we give our panelists a hand for a job well done? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, if anyone wants to stay over, I'll ask the panelists to stay. And we've got a couple of more comments that it was very helpful. Thank you so much. Well, we want to say you're very welcome. If you want to stay over and talk to one of the panelists, you can. We bid you good night and see you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at dwilliams@purdue.edu. My phone number is very easy as well. I said dwilliams@purdue.edu. My phone number is 765-494-6700. Wishing everyone a good night. See you soon.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
You're welcome.